Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the entree musician, and so are you. Welcome to another incredible, exciting edition of the Entree Musician Podcast. As you know, this is the space where we concentrate on the mindset, the discipline, and the focus of the entree musician. In today's episode, absolutely no exception. Today, we're going to go into the big, huge mistake bag, and I'm going to pull out 7 mistakes that I made as a band leader. Once upon a time, before becoming an entree musician, I was a band leader, and this year, 2022 marks 20 years. I can't believe I'm that old. It marks 20 years of being the band leader of an original alternative funk jazz fusion group called SounDoctrine. Now, SounDoctrine, in total transparency, has been on hiatus for about 3.5 years now. It really had nothing to do with what the world walked through back in 2020 and some parts of 2021. However, with solo projects, with musicians working with other artists, and just life, we kind of cooled our heels a little bit. But one of the things that is going on is the fact that we're remixing the Perseverance album. Perseverance was released in May of 2002. Gee, many. Yeah, so 2002, we released Perseverance, and now we are working on the re-release of that album. It's going to be called Perseverance 2.0, and there will be some incredible remixes. Now, I'm not saying that just because I'm personally involved, but we took each of the songs, we reimagined them. However, we kept a lot of the original vocals. Now, you know as well as I do, with the technology that's available, you can tighten up vocals that were recorded 20 years ago. And, there's far more technology that's available to us. And so what we did was we redid the music, but we, wanted to keep true to the original voice work that was done, plus the fact that everybody spread all over the place. So it's hard to call a Carlton Jenkins back, or a Tracy Prisby, or an Angela Harris. Janice Jones is a little more acceptable. Hi, Jan. She's a little bit more accessible to us. But, all of the wonderful singers we use, what we were trying to do, and I'll get into the 7 mistakes in a minute. But while I'm down this trail, I'll just talk about it. One of the things that we tried to do when we were putting that project together, it was our first one, and we were heavily influenced by Quincy Jones, who had done like The Dude and Back on the Block, and where it was just this conglomerate of artists in this cohesive project. And Quincy was doing, he was famous for doing that. And that's what we were doing. We were getting the best musicians. We were getting the best singers that we knew at the time, of course, and, just running each song as, hey, this song could stand as a single on its own, yet there was a running theme through the Perseverance project. And then, thanks to the genius of Cliff Barnes, when we had to take the project out on the road, we kind of became a funk jazz band, because many of the times the vocalists could not make, the gigs. And so it was largely on our MD, Clifford Barnes, to really transform us into the band that we became. And so one day we'll just have a video where I'll have all of them on via Zoom, and we'll talk about the early days of SounDoctrine. But this is not that video. This video is about the mistakes I made, some very incredibly stupid mistakes that I made as I led this wonderful band, SounDoctrine. And I'll say, hey, apologies There were not many personnel mistakes, but there were some of those. But I'm going to put them in there because if you're a band leader, and so grateful that gigs and shows and concerts and performances are opening up everywhere. So guys and gals are getting right back on the road and doing what we should be doing out there. But if you're going to start a band, and if either you have claimed yourself to be the band leader or you were voted into the position of being a band leader, here are 7 things you don't want to do. Let me repeat that. You don't want to do these things, okay? Because as I looked into the big, huge mistake bucket, these were 7 blunders. So I freely share them with you now. Number 1 is I was too optimistic. I had no plan for the band SounDoctrine. Really, a lot of the great things that happened to the group before we somewhat disbanded, I should say went on hiatus, because that day is coming back. But before we went on hiatus, a lot of the great things that happened, and they do happen that way by osmosis. You have a great gig, you open for a big name artist, and we were opening for people like Atlantic Star, Kirk Whalum, Confunction, Spiral Gyra. We were starting to really do that. And so what happens is a promoter says, hey, well, why don't you come to this show, or we'll put you on this bill, or whatever the case may be. We were blessed to be on the Weather Channel for 4 years. I'm thinking that's 2006 to something like 2010. Our music was being played. And so, of course, that garnered even greater performances and greater notoriety. So that's good. But the problem was I didn't have a plan. I didn't sit down and plan out what are the next steps. What is the big picture? What does it look like? I was going organically off of my optimism. Great things are coming, so great things are sure to come. But, where there are hills and you're going up, there are also valleys, right? And so I didn't prepare for the valleys. And so the valleys, presented some of the personnel issues that I was talking about. The valleys were, systematic things, logistical things that would come about. And man, how do you handle that? And so you're working in the moment, and you're thinking, and you're trying to flex, and you're trying to, pivot to all these things. But without a great plan in front of you, failure, my friend, is sure to come. So we've done some videos about planning appropriately. I want you to avail yourselves to this. Just scan through our video library. And, one of the big things that we've talked about is planning appropriately. So if you're a band leader, please plan, because that was mistake number 1 for me. It might have been mistake number 1 through 7, but let's go into number 2. And number 2 was I was not paying close enough attention to the numbers. That goes into the planning aspect, because yes, we were getting paid for most of the gigs, and that's one that I'll tell you about. Coming up, it made the list. But in the gigs that we were either getting royalty checks for, or getting receiving performance income from, or getting money from CD Baby at that time when the CDs were all the rage. Again, I wasn't paying attention to the numbers. Here was a need, so we would pay it. We didn't plan for it. You know what I mean? We would pay. We got to get to that city. So, of course, and you guys who are on the road, you ladies who are on the road, what I'm talking about. So you have to budget accordingly. You have to plan accordingly. The numbers make sense. I have an incredible accountant who was always telling me, you can't afford to play this gig. Oh, but this is going to do this. Head in the sky, too optimistic. Yes, but the numbers tell me this. Well, I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not. And perhaps the same thing may be true for you. You may not be a numbers person. You are a, saxophone player, or you're a keyboardist, or like me, you're a drummer. And it's like, yo, I'm just trying to get the music out there. But you have to have, listen, you have to have someone on your team who is paying attention to the numbers, because the numbers do speak truth. It's not what you think they are. 1 + 1 will always equal 2, right? 1 - 1 will always equal 0. You got to be right on point with it. And one of the biggest mistakes, the second mistake that I made as a band leader, was not paying attention to the numbers. So speaking of numbers, that brings us to mistake number 3. And that is, I was playing, and by having the band play, convincing the band to play, enticing them to play at times. And yeah, there was a couple of gigs where there had to be some manipulation involved, and I had to spin a narrative, which was like, mistake, big mistake. We were playing too many promotional gigs. Oh my gosh. Listen, new band leader, watch out for the keyword exposure, because promoters, booking agents, venue owners will use the exposure clause any and every time that they can. But this will give you exposure, they will say. There's going to be 3,000 people at that festival. We definitely want you there because this is going to help your career. It's a promotional gig. No, really, truly, let me tell you, the only true promotional gigs are the radio interviews. And I'll tell you a little bit about interviewing and doing your own promotion that I think will help you very much. But with respect to a mistake that the buck stops here, was doing too many of those gigs. Yes, there are some that you have to do, but again, put that in your plan. How will that help you? Because the name of the game is, when you are out on the road, you should be getting paid. Or it should be such an incredible barter system that it's a no-brainer. It presents a win for you, and it presents a win to the venue owner. And when it's not that, and you got these little neurons snapping off in your head, like, which I did many times, but I thought, well, I don't want to disappoint either the people in that city who, were buying the records or downloading the music. I don't want to disappoint them. And, it's just 2 hours away from the city we just played. Mistake. Hope you can dig it, okay? So number 1, no plan. Number 2, did not pay close attention to the numbers. And number 3, far too many promotional gigs. Now, again, let me just say it again. There are times where you are going to have to play some promotional gigs, but make sure they are only going to present wins, that they are promotional gigs which will elevate you and bring you closer to greater prosperity, whatever that means to you and to your band. Don't make that mistake. Number 4, let's talk about signing agreements. Now, that's a two-headed monster. Because early on, I didn't sign any agreements. I know. I wasn't an entree musician at the time, but word of mouth was good enough for me. Word of mouth was good enough for me to drive from Youngstown to Philadelphia. Yeah. To play a gig, right? It was, word of mouth. I don't know why I trusted the person, but, it seemed good to me at the time. And it wasn't good. Okay, I'll just, I won't tell you the horror story, but it wasn't good. And rightly so, band members were ticked at me, and rightly so. Okay, because I didn't sign an agreement. And then when I began signing agreements, this is the other two-head of the two-headed monster, I didn't read, understand, or ask for counsel on the fine print. Both are detrimental to you as a band. Always sign an agreement. And here's the thing. Here's the secret. Here's what I want to share with you. Okay? You bring your own agreement. Now, they're going to want, the venue owner, the booking agent, they're going to want you to sign something. You take it, you make sure that you have your legal counsel look over it, but you have an agreement too. Okay? You have an agreement, and your agreement primarily states these two things. Number one, we get a deposit. Okay? We don't care about green M&Ms in the green room. We don't care about that. You know, we might care a little bit about food depending on how far you've traveled and what's on the rider, but we get a deposit. And number two, listen to me very carefully. Number two is we get paid right after sound check. Okay, so we've come, we've driven, we've rode the bus, we've flown. If that's your situation, we arrive. Everybody knows you're there. We've already had the deposit 30 to 60 days prior to the show. We do the sound check. And then we settle the payment. Because you cannot, my friend, repossess a gig. Can you dig it? If you don't hear anything else that I've said to you today, please understand and know that once the gig is done, that's it. If the promoter, the venue owner, the festival sir or madam doesn't want to pay you or can't pay you because of their own stupidity and the mistakes that they have made, that show is done. It's over. There's nothing you can do. You know, if it was a product, you could say, give me the product back because you were supposed to pay me X for the product. But you are a service. You are providing a service and in many ways a solution to the audience dilemma of wanting and needing great music, and you supplied it, and once it's done, that's it. So your agreement that you bring to the table is, here's what we've settled on. Here's the amount of the deposit doable on this date. We've arrived. Everything is set up. Perhaps you've set up your own equipment. Of course, you know, it's a situation where you only bring in your guitars and plug in and roll with it. But after the sound check is done, we don't go on until we get the balance. Never knew that. Never did it. And you want to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes and you sign the appropriate documentation. Number 5, too little promotion, or let me say too stupid promotion. Not necessarily a two-headed monster, but early in the game, I didn't know how to promote appropriately. And 20 years ago, I think we were dealing with, what was the name of that? Oh, it escapes me. I'm an old man. MySpace. Yeah. Okay. MySpace. There was no Facebook, you know, there was no TikTok, there was no Twitter. None of that was happening in 2002, 2003, 2004, around that era. The internet was this new vast horizon, much like Web3 is now. And we were just, you know, doing everything that we can, but it wasn't enough to do adequate promotion. Part of the reason for that is because I was too cheap, because I didn't pay attention to the numbers, already said that, too cheap to really hire someone to help me to promote appropriately. I can't tell you, I mean, it's much easier now, as we've said, but there's still the room that you must make in the budget for someone to help you with promotion, because it's not enough. Once you've played your hometown and grandma has come and Auntie Nay has come to the gig, that's pretty much it. Chances are, unless you are virtuosos, that grandma and Aunt Meg is not coming to the gig twice. I don't know. I mean, maybe grandma really, really loves you. Okay? And, you know, maybe you are that special person, But you got to understand that once you are an hour away, 3 hours away, 7 hours away from your hometown, you have to get help. So we did too little promotion. And then when we got smart enough, and when I'm saying we, actually, I should be saying I, okay, because I was the band leader and I was taking care of that stuff. Okay, so the buck stops with Jerry B right here. So I, when I learned the value of email lists, when I learned, that a newsletter needed to happen, and was pretty adept at putting those things together, the stupid part came about because what I did was I would promote to people who were 5 hours away from where we were playing. It was just crazy. I mean, why would you do that, right? Of course, by God's grace, I'm a little bit smarter than I was then. But this is something that you don't want to do. You want to harness the people that you will be playing to in the city that you're going to. So if you're playing Pittsburgh, maybe, again, you might have some people in Cleveland come to Pittsburgh for your show, but it's easier to book a show in Cleveland and to promote in Cleveland. Okay, when you're playing Baltimore, you don't need anybody in Cleveland or Pittsburgh to know that you're playing Baltimore. Okay, you want to gather Baltimore, DC, Virginia, Delaware. You want to get, that crowd to come to see you either in Baltimore or DC. You know what I'm saying? So you want to localize and regionalize your promotion accordingly. Obviously, if it's a new song that you have, then you do the blanket and everybody gets it. But when you are performing, doing live performance, there's a way that you do promotion. I sucked at it early on. You don't want to do the same thing. Okay, so where are we at so far? No plan, not paying attention to the numbers, too many promotional gigs, the whole situation with signing agreements and not signing agreements, too little promotion, and number 6, huge problem for me, huge mistake, was not charging enough for the performance. Oh man, what a mindset. Scarcity, okay? Wanting the gig more than I wanted to actually pay my bills, and that's an emotional, that's really a deep-rooted issue. One day we will do a whole video about the scarcity mentality, okay? Because here we are, 6 people on stage who all need to pay their bills, and you just want to get on the stage. I get it. Been there 100 times. But you have to say, this is what we are worth. Now, of course, there's a two-way street on that. Well, because there's a budget, that the venue owner or club owner has. They have a budget, and they say, well, this is our budget for bands. We always pay this price for band, or this festival. This is the slot right here. And you have to make that value decision. But you can't have the confidence of saying no and spending that time of working on your craft so that maybe next year, maybe 3 months down the road, or whatever it is, that you're going to be worth it to them to bust their budget to pay you the extra $500 or $5,000 to do the gig. And too often, we as musicians, we are as band leaders, we say, hey, they're giving us this opportunity. Let's drive the 800 miles to go get it. And not smart. Sorry, not smart. Better to bloom where you are planted. Better to perfect your show. Better to tighten yourselves as musicians and grow and go, we're going to get there because you know what? We have a plan, and our plan is to get there, but this may not be the right time because they're only paying so much. You have to put the value on yourself. Now, of course, again, as they have a budget, the market is only going to pay you what the market pays. My wife is a realtor, and she taught me this early on. In her early days of being a realtor, the seller will say, this is the price that I want for my house. Okay, and she can stick the sign in the yard with that price in it, but if that's not what the buyer thinks the house is worth, the buyer won't buy it for that amount. Okay, so it's the same thing. You have to take those things into consideration. That is true. You must do that. However, again, I know what I've put in this house. I know the value of this house. Now, I may need to make some adjustments because the market says this, but I know that I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I know as a band, we are this, we provide that. There are no other bands that play the type of music that we do within 2,000 miles. And we know that we have a killer show. So this is the value. And we want to say, okay, well, this is what the market says, but we're going to try to get as close to that or higher as we can. So you absolutely want to do that. Big mistake for me was not charging enough. I didn't understand when we were on the Weather Channel. I didn't understand when we were hitting certain radio stations, especially when we charted on Billboard. I didn't understand the power of the moment to say, here's where we are, here's what the value is. So I did not put that in the EPK. I did not capitalize on that. And again, that was a lack of having a team, which brings me to the seventh one. No team means no consistency. And my mistake was not being consistent enough. You know why I wasn't being consistent? Oh, it goes back to number one. It always goes back to number one, no plan. If you have no plan, you have no consistency. So you're jumping all over the place. You're making decisions on the fly. And people, audiences, your fan base needs you to be consistent. That's how they stay with you over the years. They know what to expect from you. Now, here's your part. You're always exceeding their expectations, but they do have an expectation of you. And when you don't send out emails on a regular basis, your newsletter is spot here and there. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. Your website doesn't have a consistency about it that not only keeps your brand, but also tweaks it in a way where it only gets better, where they know that you are better. They feel it. You know, there's that energy, there's that motivation. That's your responsibility. It was my responsibility, and it was a huge mistake for me. Because why? I'm putting out fires, man. If I'm putting out fires, I can't be consistent. Can you dig it? But you got to be consistent. So here's the recap. 7 huge, ugly, incredibly stupid mistakes that I made as a band leader. No plan, number 1. Not paying attention to the numbers, number 2. Number 3, too many promotional gigs. You got to. That's bad English, but you got to do it. You have to know, okay, this is something that's going to do it. Oh, I did say that the best promotion, at least when radio and radio stations were around to help you, you have to know this is a true promotion. And when we did radio promotion for songs or when we were in a certain city, those really got us the best traction, not the promotional gig itself. Here's why. Let me, I know I'm wrapping up, but I got to say this about that. Okay. And that is that festival person, that club owner is going to say to you, okay, this is good for you, but next year or next season or the next time that we do this, I'll make sure that you get paid because you're doing this for me. Never happens. Do you understand that there's another band out there that is just as green and wide-eyed as your band in that moment that they're going to choose for that slot the next time? You may not even get a call back. And if you do, it'll probably be because you definitely brought the house down and they're saying, wow, we just gotta have you, but I can't pay you. Like I said, look, walk away. Okay, so no plan, paying attention to the numbers. You have to do that. Too many promotional gigs. Number 4, the agreements, making sure that you have one. Making sure that you're reading what they're putting in front of you, that you have a legal counsel that can kind of stop, drop, and roll if that means having someone on retainer Oh, yeah, definitely want to do that. So, this is the situation. And you may think, hey, look, I'm just starting out. We don't have much money. We only have an EP out and we're eating ramen noodles. Yeah, I get it. But these things are going to help you. Look to these entities, the accountant, the promotional person, your photographer, other people, and we'll talk about teams in another video, but look at these people as investments, which will only help you grow faster. And when you grow faster, then you can afford them, and you can probably afford a Big Mac and move away from the noodles. But anyway, signing the agreements, too little promotion, or making sure that you're doing smart promotion, as I've already outlined, and making sure that you're charging enough. You want to charge your value or as close to it as you can possibly get. And you want to make sure that you can say no and that you have the confidence of saying, you know what, that's not going to work for us because we know who we are. It's a tightrope you got to walk, I know. But man, I should have said no more often. And when you say no, there's a power that comes. Believe me when I tell you, there's a power that comes into play on that, because you're saying, not going to fall for the dumb stuff. Okay? We are professionals. Okay? And professionals know when to say no. And there's a power in saying no that you have to bring to the table. So please, by all means, charge your worth. And finally, consistency. You must maintain your brand, because that's what your audience, your followers are expecting. They want to make sure that you remain you because they love you. They're here to support you. And you can't go off just changing and off the fly and off the handle. You can't do it unless, of course, that is a part of your brand. Much like Prince, you never knew where Prince was coming from, but that was the beauty that he had established with his followers. And you can do the same as long as they know, hey, these guys, they can just come from anywhere. If not, maintain your consistency. Well, I hope that you will be helped by the stupidity that I have learned from and grown from so many years of doing this as a band leader. And again, peace out to SounDoctrine alumni. We will put it back together. I'm excited about the future and excited about what this new release is going to do. But even more excited and eager to know what you think about what I said, about what you can do, about your position as a band leader and how you can actually win. And it's just like me saying, hey, if you don't do these 7 stupid things, you will be very, very successful. That's my heart for you. That's my hope for you. Listen, if you haven't done so lately, come and check us out at theentremusician.com. There are various ways that you can get involved, and we want you to click on the Backstage Pass, learn about how you can participate. There are opportunities for just about anything from collaboration to coaching and resources that we provide that will help you, because that's what we're all about here at the Entre Musician. We're about helping you in your journey. So, come and hang out with us. Come and journey with us. You can do that at theentremusician.com if you have not already. My name is Jerry B. I certainly appreciate you. I am an Entre Musician, but the most important thing is so are you. And we will see you next time. God bless and take care.